Okay, so I thought I would pop on and talk to you about colour and how I choose the colour for any arrangement. This selection I'm choosing for a hand-tied bouquet, but I go through the same process regardless of what I'm creating. And I think sometimes people don't put the time in to considering colour. I like to choose, you can see here, this is kind of a range of pinks and purples. So my go-to, my safe, happy place is to choose colours that work through one section of a colour wheel or one colour palette. So for me, I would feel a little bit nervous, a bit anxious about choosing something orange, something pink, something blue. I like it to all kind of work together in one palette. But that said, this is one colour palette, but you can see here there are lots of different colours. So the way I start often is by choosing my first flower, and I might choose that because of the flower itself and what it's doing. So this lupin here, for example, has got this really nice curve to it. So this flower might be the first flower that I choose. So I would have a look at that, see what colour it is, and then work from there. If I've got lots of vases like I have here or buckets of flowers, I will take my time and I'll go through each of my vases, all of my flowers, and hold one of each flower in my hand and see if I'm happy with the colour. And I like colour to sort of blend from one to the other. So one flower may pick up the colour of another. So for example, here, I've got this dahlia, which is quite violet. It's a very vibrant colour. And then I've got my verbena here, which has got elements of that same purple, but it's also got a different colour in there. It's got a lilac, more of a lilac sort of pinky colour in there, but one works very well against the other. So I might put these in my hand and think, okay, I like that mix, that combination. I might then get my cosmos here, which again is kind of a vibrant pink, but it is more pink than my dahlia. But somehow those together, for me, really work. I'm looking for sort of almost like colour transference. So I've got those together, and then I might look at this dahlia here, which has got a little bit of purple, a little bit of pink, a bit of lilac in there. So again, all those sit really well for me. They're all different, but they all work well together. And then I've got this cosmos here, which again, you know, I look at that and you might sort of look at it on its own and think, oh yeah, it's pink with a yellow centre. But actually I look a bit deeper in there and I've got a pink, but I put it next to here and it shows me that there's purple in there. There's also a bit of yellow in there. So if I've got another flower, for example, my other cosmos here, it's got a bit of yellow, it's going to pick up that as well. So I like things to blend, transfer together. So I've got those, which offer me a nice palette, different textures. I've got the roundness of my dahlia, I've got the floatiness of my cosmos. I've already shown you my lupin. And then here I've got echinacea, which if I put that in there, does something else as well. Highlights the pinks, but also the dark centre of the echinacea means that I can bring in this dark scabious, and that kind of reacts with that. The only other couple of bits then I've got over here is a pale pink, like button dahlia. And I like to have something that's paler, but sometimes white is too much, so it's too stark. And very much with these colours, white would be too much. It would take all the transference of colour, that beautiful blending, and it would just add something in there that's too stark and it would spoil the whole effect. But this, it's light, it's bright, so it can lift, but it's also pink, so it sits in with my palette really nicely. And then finally here, I've got some snowberries, which obviously pink, they offer me a little bit of green. And also, again, a different texture, it's doing a different thing. So if I hold these in my hand all together, you can see that that's my colour combination. And obviously for a bouquet, I would need more stems than this, but I've just selected one of each so I can see that the palette works and the texture and the shape of my colours work. And what I would then do is go choose more of these flowers. I might not choose necessarily a lot more of my dahlias. They're quite round, quite solid. I might have more cosmos than dahlia. I might have one of the lupin, or I might just allow that to be on its own. But yeah, essentially that's what I'm looking for when I am choosing my flowers for any design that I do. So I think what my advice is, is to look a little bit harder at the colours, the textures, the shapes of flowers you're choosing before you then start your design. So spend a little bit of time really looking at the colour and the relationship of the colour between each flower before you start. That's my top tip. I'm going to show you how to create a hand-tied bouquet using a chicken wire armature. So I've literally got a piece of chicken wire, I don't know, 10 inches across maybe. It doesn't have to be a certain size. It depends how large you want your bouquet to be. It depends on the size of your armature. And what I'm going to do with this is just make it into a tube. So I'm going to roll it round so you can see like that. And then with the bits of chicken wire that are cut here, I'm just going to bend those over to secure my tube. So just literally wrap those around so it's nice and secure. Any bits I've got sticking out there, I'm just going to wrap those around. And basically this acts as it's an armature, so it acts as a structure for us to put our stems into. So when you see bouquets that have got a nice shape, so it might be a bit asymmetrical, you've got stems kind of bobbing around, or you've got stems coming out of the front. If you struggle to do that in your hand, because it is quite hard to do it in your hand, you might find this a bit of a game changer for you. So these ends, I'm just going to fold in because I don't want that to be open. So I'm going to fold those in and just bend chicken wire around itself. So again, that's secure. So this will sit in your bouquet, so it won't come out. It will sit in your bouquet, but you won't see it when it's finished. So I'm going to do the same the other end. Just going to fold that in. So it kind of acts a bit like a vase almost in your hand, or like a vessel in your hand. And it just makes this kind of bouquet much easier to get the shape. So you can see there. Let's put that around there. It's got this structure. So you don't want it to be much thicker than this or much wider. It could be longer if you're wanting to do, really quite a large bouquet, wide bouquet. But I'm going to use this size, and you can see how big this ends up being. My chicken wire, I use this coated chicken wire, and although it's plastic coated, it's certainly not single use because I could reuse this chicken wire. It's also much kinder to your hands. It's much more pliable to do this kind of job. So what I'm going to do, I am right-handed, so my bouquet sits in my left and I do all the work with my right. So I want to try and keep this as straight as possible, certainly when I'm putting my first stems in there. So I kind of just hook my thumb and my finger into the armature just to keep it straight. Eventually what will happen when I've got my stems in, my hand will move down and my hand will just hold the stems. But to start, I'm just going to hold it like that. So before I put my flowers in, I've actually got some jasmine here, which I'm going to put in to help guide the shape that I want. So this armature, we want to make sure we use the full length, and we can use the front and the back. If you were doing this as a bridal bouquet and your bride is going to be holding this, obviously we don't want too many stems coming like into the back but coming out towards her. So we want more of a flat back. So I'm going to put my first stem in there. I'm just weaving it into the armature. So I can grab my stem and I've still got my finger looped around the armature. And when I'm choosing my stems, I'm looking for stems that will do the job for me, make my job easier. So this is great. You can see if I look from the side here, it gives me that really nice tumble. So I'm just going to put that into the front of my armature. So the stem goes in and out. So that stem is sitting in my hand, but you can see I've created that nice fall with the jasmine. So it's just one stem. I've got two pieces of one stem and it's tumbling forward really nicely. Put this one in. This one here, I'm just going to take that stem off and use that at the front maybe. This one. And pop that over there. So when I look at my stems, I just look to see what they're doing naturally. And instead of forcing them to do something different, I encourage them to do what they want to do naturally. So you can see with my foliage, I can create a three-dimensional shape before I start putting my flowers in, and that just helps me to know, to see, to visualize the shape of my bouquet. So just these few stems, you can see already the shape that my bouquet is going to take. So I want a three-dimensional shape. So if I just turn that way, you can see this is my back. So I've got stems coming up through the center, but also I've got this nice tumble forward, and those stems are sat in my hand. I've still got a finger wrapped around the armature just to keep it straight until I get a few more stems in, and then I'll be able to take my finger out of the chicken wire and just have it around the stems. I've got a couple of other pieces, but I might just leave those, put those to one side for now. So I might add those in at the end and start adding some of my flowers. So I've got this snowberry, which isn't really a flower, but it's got that nice pink berry on it. So it's adding some colour. So I might add this into my bouquet because it's adding foliage still. So I've got a little bit of green on there. Okay, I'm now going to move my fingers out and just wrap them around the stems. I'm just going to take a little bit more of my snowberry. And this helps, it's nice. I've got a nice arc on that, so I'm going to add it into this side here to give me a little bit more shape. Take my bouquet out a little bit further. So I'm going to go into the end of my armature. That in. It's stuck. Okay, so let's hang on to that. It's because I didn't cut, so this snowberry has got like little nodes along the branch and it was getting stuck into the chicken wire, so that's it. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit more. This one here has got a nice tumble, a nice arc, so I'm going to put this one in this side, strip that foliage, make it a bit easier, pop that in there. Okay, so what I might do is just pop a little bit more at the back, but lower down, just so you can see a little bit of the snowberry. Take those leaves off. Just pop that right in the back there. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start adding some of my flowers. Sometimes I go for the largest flower, other times not. I mean, everything here that I've laid out is quite similar in size. It does different things, so my dahlias are quite straight, a little bit more solid. My cosmos here are definitely more bouncy, lighter. But what I might start with is this loop in here, because he's actually quite heavy and you can see the stem is quite thick, so it can get tricky. The more stems you get in, the more stems you start putting in to your armature, you can run out of space. So I'm going to start with this one because he's got the thickest stem. So if I can get that one in, and then I can work other stems around it. So I'm using that nice shape that my lupin has. Okay, I'm going to go in with Cosmos. So this has got 2 flowers on 1 stem. Just going to take those bits of foliage off, chop that there. So I'm always looking to get more from 1 stem. So I've got 2 flowers just on this one skinny stem. So what I'm going to try and do is just pop that in and use both flowers. So you can see here I've got one that's coming off this way and one that's going off up here, dancing up here, and that's just off 1 stem. So when you have flowers like this one here, you know, multiple off 1 stem, don't always think, oh, I need to cut those, because if you can make them work, then it's 1 stem less that you need to put into your flowers. So I'll leave that one for now. I'm going to go in with my echinacea. And the thing that I want to make sure I do with this bouquet is have things coming out. So we've already got this, we've established we've got this nice sort of tumble. I want to continue that by adding flowers almost coming straight out at you. And what I'm going to do is start to layer my flowers almost on top of each other. while still being able to see them. So I don't want everything to be the same stem length. I don't want it to look flat. I want it to really interest you. I want you to be kind of drawn in to my bouquet because some flowers are tucked under others, or you know, something's bouncing up here which then leads to something underneath. So don't be afraid to have flowers at different lengths. It adds more interest. So I'm going to tuck that one in a little bit further. Again, I'm going to do the same thing with this scabious, but I'm going to leave this a little bit further out. It's going to move the angle slightly. So you can see here we've got scabious there, we've got echinacea tucked underneath, we've got another echinacea that's a little bit further out. So if they were all at the same length, they'd all be sort of fighting for to be seen. But because I've put them at different lengths, you can kind of work your way through from one to the next. I'm going to put this on dahlia in. Leave that bouncing there. So I'm just going to work my way through, adding my different flowers, different heights, different lengths, and just create interest as I go. So I'm kind of focusing on this area for the minute, but then I will work out towards the edge of my bouquet as well. And also I want to make sure that I'm going back up here as well, so you can see this bit of armature here. I've got plenty of space in there to add more flowers. So I'm going to work, so not only here, but I'm also going to work my way back as well. I'm just going to carry on adding these in. You can see I have added and added and added my flowers. If I turn here, you can see we've got this shape, this nice sort of tumbling shape. You can also see that I've got flowers in, out to the sides. I've just layered on top, got some nice sort of bouncy stems up here. And if I were to hold it in front like this, you can see it's got a nice lot of movement to it. What I have done is just, I went and had a look at the mirror a couple of times to make sure the shape was right. My flowers were doing what I wanted them to do. And then I've just put some of the pot tape around my stems instead of twine. I find I've got quite a few soft stems, and when I've got quite a lot of flower in my hand, I find the tape works better. So it holds them, but still allows to sort of a little bit of movement. I think sometimes when I'm using twine, if I've got lots of different stems doing lots of different things, I feel like I have to really pull my twine tight, and sometimes that can kind of strangle my stems a little bit. So I find the tape works better. What I'm going to do is just cut these stems off initially. I will go back and do a better job of that, but just to allow me to see kind of where the stem, let's pop that back in there, how the stems are looking. So I think what I'll do is probably take one more look in the mirror. If I need to add anything else, I will do, but I think I'm pretty much there. You do have to remember, certainly if this were for a bride, that your bride needs to be able to hold the flowers in one hand. So this feels nice and light and airy, but she does need to be able to hold it in one hand. So if you can't hold it in yours, then it's going to be too much. I'm just going to show you once more with the tape. So I've got a piece of pot tape here. So I literally just lay the tape over my stems and I pull it nice and tight, and then literally just around my stems there. And then obviously I'm going to cover this with ribbon, so you won't see this tape, but just to show you. And then here at the back, so again, if it was my bridal bouquet, I don't really want too much more than this. So even this, I might just try and put that up a little bit. Work that around there. You can see this bit of chicken wire here. All I'm going to do is just squash that in. If you were worried and thought, actually, I can see too much chicken wire, what you can do is just place some foliage over the chicken wire so it doesn't need to go into it. So I might take a bit of my jasmine, for example, and just put that over my chicken wire. Got another little bit there. Or I might take a small flower and just pop that over so you can't see the chicken wire here. And then I could just retape those stems. What I don't want to do is add too much, so it's let's say your bride doesn't feel like she can hold it nice and close. Don't want to add too much. I don't want to change the shape either. I like what's going on here, so I don't want to add anything else. So just laying some bits on the back and retaping is absolutely fine. I'm just going to pop those in there. So I'm just going to have one last look in the mirror and check that I'm happy, and then I'll come back with some ribbon and show you how to do that. Okay, so I am happy with my bouquet. I can't really fit any more in, if I'm honest, but I'm happy. I've just sort of had a little tweak, a little play around with that, but I'm happy. So what I'm going to do now is just, I've got some ribbon here, some velvet silk, which I'm going to just tie around. I'll show you how to do that, and then we're going to grab some photos. So I'm going to lay my bouquet down, which is great because we've got that flat back. It's a lot easier to lay it down. And then with my ribbon, I'm going to go around where my tape is. I'm going to cover my tape and even that out so it's pretty much equal. I'm going to go around the back, come around the front again, and depending on whether you want just long trails and a knot or whether you want a bow, it's up to you. So bring that ribbon around to the front. If I'm doing trails, so just a knot and trails, I always knot off to one side. So if you think about your bride, especially if you had like a coloured ribbon or quite a dark coloured ribbon, what you don't want to do is have your ribbon running down the centre of your bouquet and down the centre of her skirt, because it's just going to cut her in two. So always think knot or ribbon, bow off to one side, so your trailing ribbon isn't going to cut your bride in two. So I'm just going to do a bow, just like I would tie a pair of shoelaces. So I'm just going to under and over and just have a little play with the ribbon so that you've got it looking nice on both sides. And then I'm just going to let those pieces trail. And what I will do is just trim those for the photographs. But there you go, there's your bouquet.